Without implementing self-imposed restrictions, I find myself constantly going for the same countries in the same states every single game. I don't even need to look up the countries, I know them off by heart, and if you're a fan of my videos, then you probably know them off by heart too. Sulu into Brunei, Gaza into Transvaal and Oranje, North Heilongjiang and North Jilin, California, Arizona, Nevada, Sonora, West Australia, Victoria, Van Diemen's Land, South Island. The list really does go on, but gold has become an addiction to my playstyle that can't be replicated by any other resource. I know that wood, when built correctly and used correctly, actually has a higher return than gold does, but the complexity in that system doesn't make it feel like it has a higher return. Gold, meanwhile, is simple. Its complexity is zero. You mine gold, you see gold in the minting screen, and it tells you outright how much you're making off of it directly. You're even making a little extra on the side once you're past the panhandling stage and on the direct mining building stage. Of course, that's with the right technologies. Supplementing your income is a great way to encourage immediate and tangible growth, and it can make up for any given shortcomings in a player's skill. It is a crutch that I continually abuse, and I don't know if I ever want to get rid of it. It does come with some initial problems that can really backfire if you're not careful though. Not every game will have access to gold, and if you don't learn how to properly build up an economy without using gold outright, you'll struggle handily to get yourself started. Small Central African nations come to mind. Another problem stems from the fact that as a resource, the flat 100-pound value can actually be a worse trade-off than some other exceptional industrial goods, especially if you got a company for those goods. For larger countries, the extra money that you get from minting might not even be worth it. However, that's not the whole point of this video now, is it? No. The real point is to comment about the reason why I tend to go for the same countries each and every single time. It's more than just meta. It's the restrictions imposed on us by Infamy. Infamy is a factor designed specifically to limit how fast our growth is, and to penalize us when we overexpand. However, barring a few bonuses implemented by leadership traits or technologies, plus a meager modifier for having maxed out influence, there really isn't any way to reduce the amount of infamy that you've accrued. This can actually convince the player that infamy is an exceptionally valuable resource that absolutely must be spent properly in every game. Even if there's no immediate desire to expand outward into the world, wasting infamy reaches a point where it almost feels like blasphemy for advanced players, either by taking worthless states or simply by not using it at all. For smaller countries in particular, this leads to the usual suspects of conquest: Sulu, Brunei, Gaza, Transvaal, Oranje. I suppose this brings me back to the original point of my video, but the only exceptions are for advanced players who deliberately limit their growth. That's just how good gold is in the early game for pretty much every country, especially smaller ones. If I'm not doing an active playthrough and nobody's gonna judge me for cheesing, I guarantee that the first states I'm going to take are gold producing provinces that are barely guarded, or in the case of places like California, Heilongjiang and Jilin, they're lightly guarded by weak guardsmen. Honestly, the only reason I don't ever bother to take Chile and Bolivia's gold is because their block mandate score is more valuable to me, so I make them protectorates and take their minting value by way of puppeting and diplomatic pact. This likely ties into the limited amount of infamy that we get. Every conquest is precious to the point where meta players will focus only on the states that'll give us the best value in return, and gold is the best value-based resource until oil. Not everybody is on YouTube and mindlessly trying to make the prettiest thumbnail possible after all. Of course, gold does lose its efficiency later on, particularly once the panhandling stages are over. It suddenly stops being free minting money, and you have to spend a very sizable amount of construction on it. The simple truth is that it's not always worth it until you have water tube boilers researched. Even then, the company itself isn't anything special either, and it should really only be taken if you plan to conquer every single gold mine in the game so it can constantly expand. By mid-game, you'll probably want to conquer states that produce opium or rubber, while in the late game, you'll clearly want oil. Yet, in the early game is where most players live. We don't all finish games. Heck, some of us will never even see the late game, so that's why gold is the king of resources even now. My only gripe is the fact that it's pretty much guaranteed in all of the same states without any hint of randomness. So how do we fix this feeling of necessity? How do we avoid constantly conquering the same countries every single game for the sake of feeding this necessity? Well, as I said before, randomization can make a very viable difference. If gold were to occasionally appear in Makran, Burma, or Siam instead of Brunei, Transvaal, and Orania, you might see some variation in games. It still doesn't change the fact that certain countries will get priority for conquest over others. I'd say Infamy is the real culprit here. It's so limiting with so very few methods of actually dealing with it, excluding some highly advanced cheesing. Of course, without Infamy, people would just conquer the world outright. Perhaps there needs to be a better way of reducing it, or we need to reintroduce the casus belli to allow us to reduce the amount of infamy significantly prior to every war. Return state is nice, but it's also extremely limited. I don't know, I just wanted to get this off of my chest. I hope you still enjoy playing Victoria 3 in spite of it, and always remember, Hail Hydra Cat.